Hey everyone, it's Karla with Karla Kay Art, and welcome to my video channel. I'm an artist that specializes in hand-painted silk. So to start today off, I'm going to say that I haven't done a video in a while, and my daughter was looking at my account and she pointed out that one of my videos in particular has just gotten a ton of views. So to that end, I'm going to start doing videos again. Initially, I was thinking I would do this as a series of classes, but I'm not sure that that would be as interesting to everyone looking at this video. I think that you want to see some me hand painting silk in each video. So I think I might just change that and have you just follow along with me as I do each piece. And I will edit out the extra stuff so you don't have to sit here and watch me work on the entire piece. That would take forever for each video. But I'll just make it I'll shorten it down so that you get all the interesting pieces and you can see how hand painting silk works and how my design process works, and I will teach you a little bit about everything I do with each piece. So I'm going to turn this camera around and aim it at my silk here, and you can see what I'm doing pretty much start to finish on hand painting silk. Hope you're having a great day out there, by the way, and just sit back and enjoy. Oh, also, if you want to get notifications about whenever I put out a new video, you can subscribe to my channel. Subscribing is free. It just allows you to get notifications of when I put out new videos. Okay, so I'm going to turn this around. Okay, everyone, so I'm using my phone as my video camera, so I have to automatically stop this every 15 minutes or so because I think that's as long as my phone videos will go. But to start off with, this is my silk frame. I've made it from PVC. I use a thicker PVC piping. They have different types of PVC piping. I use a thicker PVC because I want it to have some strength and durability. And I built my frame with crossbars to keep it from squeezing together. And this is a piece of silk charmeuse 19 mummy that I've ordered. It is China silk. So it's silk from China, but I buy it from a distributor out of California called Dharma Trading Company, and I've been buying things from Dharma since 1986. They're a great company to work with. I don't get paid by Dharma to say that, but they're a great company and I don't mind promoting them. So to attach the scarf to the silk frame, and I don't glue these together because sometimes I change the shape of the frame, so sometimes I have to adjust them. I just use rubber bands, and then I use these little sewing clips. And gosh, I don't want Joann Fabrics to get mad at me, but Joann Fabrics sells these, but they're kind of expensive. I get them on Amazon. I try and buy local whenever I can, but the difference in price on these clips between Joann Fabrics and Amazon is huge. So I just buy them straight from Amazon. They come in packs of like 100. In fact, I can put a link to these down below in this video. If you're familiar with YouTube, you can press links below and I can write in stuff, and I'll put a link to these clips. The rubber bands I just get from Target usually, although I think I had to buy them from Amazon last time too, because when I tried to get them at Target, they were sold out. And the lady at Target said she didn't know when they were going to be getting more, and she actually recommended I just buy them on Amazon. Okay, so I'm gonna just clip this on here to hold it tight. And you know, you're gonna see that the way I have this with the rubber bands, there are some scalloped edges here. So if you want to avoid having scalloped edges, you want to have more, even more rubber bands in here. And if you were gonna be doing something like, gosh, I saw one lady on Facebook, she'd actually drawn a musical staff, a whole musical thing on her silk, which to me was very incredible. That's a very detailed piece of work. So she needed to have exactly straight lines. I would probably do those straight lines before I ever put it on the silk frame. By the same token, if you want to use a light board and stuff to trace your drawing onto the silk before you actually put any material on the silk, you may want to do that before you put it on the frame. And I've pre-washed this. I buy this by the bolt, and I've cut it and I've washed it with some Synthropol to get out any hand grease or any cocoon debris that might be left on the silk. And I hung it dry, and then now I've got it stretched, and it's ready to be ready for me to start working on. So when I start working on hand painted silk, I start by applying a resist, and a resist works like a fence to hold in the dye. Painting on silk is kind of controlled staining, if you've ever thought of spilling wine on a tablecloth. The resist actually contains the dye and kind of holds it in, so you can put two colors next to each other and have a definite line stop them. There's all different types of resist. I think the definition of resist is anything that will repel the water-based dye. Literally butter, oil, glue, any type of substance you can stick in here that will stay in the silk, that will repel the dye back, will work. But you have to consider how you're going to get that substance out, or what it's going to look like in the end. For instance, oil you might be able to wash out, but it's still going to leave an oily stain. So they've developed products specifically for working on silk, hand painting silk, that are resists. And one of them is Resistad. It's made by a company named Jacquard. It's water soluble, so you mix it with water. You can also mix this with dyes to make it colored, a colored line. And this is permanent resist. This is clear, and it also comes in black. These are the applicators that we use to apply the resist. And this is just a plastic applicator with a mechanical pencil top on it. I actually buy everything, the mechanical pencil top and the plastic, from Dharma, as well as I get the resist from Dharma, because I want to make sure everything fits. But if you have a bunch of mechanical pencils, if you've gone to Costco or something and just gotten a bunch of them, you can try the different sizes and everything, because different sizes will produce different results on the silk. I like Resistad for adding colors. I like using permanent resist because it's a little more faithful in that it doesn't usually ever have leaks for me. So there you have it. These are my two favorite resists. But I've also used Joy soap. I practiced with that, and I have used soy wax. I really like that, but when you're using soy wax, you're using batik tools, tianting tools, and soy wax lines tend to be a bit whiter, and I like to draw with a little more detail. And I like working with beeswax a lot, but you have to take it to the dry cleaners really to get it out of silk. You can try and boil it out, but it's not quite as forgiving as cotton. And remember, the dyes have to be steamed, so you have to steam it with the wax in it, and that gets to be messy. In the case of the soy wax, it just comes off on the paper. That's great, but beeswax, it's not so kind. So I'm going to go put these back and start doing some drawings. When it comes to designs that I'm going to be putting on a hand-painted silk scarf, I used to do it all on paper, but now I primarily do it on the iPad using the program Procreate. Procreate is a program that was developed by Apple people specifically for Apple products, and it's a drawing and painting program. There's an artist out there by the name of James Julier, Julier. He's a teacher and an artist over in Europe. He teaches high school art, I believe, and he has done some great videos. I'm not getting paid by James Julier to promote him. I'll put his link down below underneath this video so you can look him up if you want. I just learned the most from him. There's many good teachers out there for Procreate. I really liked him because he is an artist and he is a school teacher and he's teaching high school art, so we have the same vocabulary. And he was getting to the important features that I wanted to get to. He teaches way more stuff than I will ever use on my Procreate, but go to him if you really want to learn how to, or check out his videos if you want to learn about how to use Procreate. So, designs. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin. I get asked to do lots of flower designs. I get asked to do lots of mermaid designs. Mermaid designs are really popular for me, not for every artist. I'm not even sure how the whole mermaid thing happened. A friend of mine asked me to draw her a mermaid, and ever since then I get asked to draw a lot of mermaids. So maybe I'll make this one a mermaid. I have a mermaid drawing here. What I do, because this kind of functions as a light board for me, and it's 12 inches wide, this is the width of a scarf, so I can just turn this sideways like this and pop it up underneath the silk and trace it. And I don't, generally speaking, trace the whole entire piece. I just trace important places, features like her face, and placement perhaps of this fish, because I was really proud of how it's turning. I kind of like the way that happened. I took a bunch of pictures down at the Seattle Aquarium of different fish trying to get them turning because most of the pictures you see online, if you're looking at how to draw fish, are sideways. So I'm going to trace her face because I'm drawing sideways. I want to make sure I've got her eyes in the right position, her nose and her mouth in the right position. So I'm actually going to turn this, well, here, I can actually go ahead and show you a little bit of my tracing. And you'll notice that the middle of this scarf is right about here, and this is the middle line for the scarf. This is a little bit wider than 12 inches. The finished scarf will be 12 inches by 72 because I have to, I hem it all myself, and I serge off about a ½ inch off of each edge. So my drawings are always a little bit smaller to accommodate that. So I literally just do that, and I'm using a very, very, very soft pencil. I'm only pushing hard enough to get the drawing to transfer to the silk. I'm not trying to make this pencil line permanent. I actually want it to be able to be erased. And I am really just doing a draft. It's not even a perfect drawing. I just need to know where to put these lines. So that is her face. There's her collarbone, her neck. I learned in some of these drawings, when you're drawing these mermaids, like that the fact that the neck comes down low and the shoulders behind it really adds to the drawing. So I always try and include those details. By the same token, this is her underarm, and I always like to show that as well. It makes the piece look just that much more. Her arm in there in the right spot, yeah. And then her tiny waist. They don't take cars, they swim everywhere, those mermaids. Now there are a few areas that I'm going to want to remain white, so I'm doing some stuff in the eye. And by white, it's white because this is clear and I'm putting it over white silk, so it will hold the white color. If the silk was yellow and I was putting this over it, the lines would be yellow. So this is what it looks like when it's dry. It's dry to the touch. I can touch it everywhere and it's not coming off on my hands. And now it's totally ready to keep the dye from spreading. You can use work on the piece if the resist is a little bit wet, but problems with that is that if dye has been added to make the resist a color, when water hits it, the dye can escape the resist and kind of blend out a little bit. And I've noticed that when wet dye hits wet resist, the whole line in general can fade out. And if you've really got a lot of water going, if you're being experimental and you're trying a lot of stuff, it can actually kind of dissolve, like weaken the resist line and make it not work so well. So I usually try and wait till the piece is totally dry, unless I'm really in a hurry for some reason. So the type of dyes that I use on my silk are called acid dyes. They're called acid dyes because they have an acidic component to them. I'm told the DuPont dyes likely have a acetic acid component. Really weak acetic acid is what we refer to as vinegar. This is not as strong as acetic acid, but I think it's a little stronger than vinegar, and it has no smell like vinegar does. I've used other dyes in the past. I've used Tin Fix, which is actually my favorite. It's made by Sennelier, but they don't make it anymore. I've used Jacquard dyes, and I still sometimes use Jacquard dyes. I'm not a huge fan of the base colors of Jacquard right now, so I've started using DuPont. Someone recommended it, and I really like their base colors. By base colors meaning I like their cyan. This is their turquoise color. I like their base yellow color, their primary colors, if you will. Primary colors of light, so yellow, cyan, and or turquoise, and fuchsia for the red. And those colors mixed together make all the colors in my palette. I also have black, and because I'm working with dyes, of course, there is no white. There is no white dye because dyes are a transparent medium. White is an opaque color, so you don't have white. When you, just like watercolors are transparent, when you have a white watercolor, it's actually white out, or the equivalent, because watercolor doesn't have any opaque colors in it. So there you have it. So I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, and I use the really limited palette, red, yellow, and blue, and black, and I use those colors. I buy them in somewhat in bulk, and I use them to mix all the rest of the colors in my palette. Sometimes I will go ahead and buy an additional color if I find I'm mixing it a lot and I just get tired of mixing it or trying to match it each time. So I have actually bought extra brown, I've bought a marine blue, and I have a yellow gamboge. It's an orangish yellow if you're familiar with watercolors. And I have some coral left over from a couple of years ago when coral was a really big hit color. And in case you didn't know, there is a group of people, merchandisers, that get together. I'm told they're about 7 years in advance of any year. They get together and they decide what the colors are going to be 7 years from the date that they meet. And that's why when you go into stores, you can buy towels that match your sheets, that match your dishware, that match your car, that match your carpets, that match your wallpaper, because these leaders of industry have all gotten together and decided that's what the colors are going to be for any given year. And that's why if you're shopping for a wardrobe, it's always advised that you buy everything at once, because going back to try and find something that matches a color you get in any given year can be very difficult. So when those colors come out, oftentimes I end up buying that particular color just because everybody will want it to match everything else they have. In the case of these being scarves, the clothing items, they want them to match their clothing items. In case of these being wall hangings, they want them to match their table covers, their napkins, all of that jazz. So I'm gonna go ahead and start painting her in. And I should say, I just dumped, these are pure dyes without any water added to them in my palette here. I add water as I go. Sometimes I use a smaller palette. Sometimes I use a smaller palette like this and mix. Sometimes I use a cup and mix it in there. And sometimes I mix it just straight on the piece so I can get different shading things going on. I rarely ever have one shape that's totally all the same color, except in the case of some of my backgrounds, which if the front piece, if the foreground is really, really bright and lively, I want the background to be kind of plain to not compete with the foreground. So keeping in mind that these are acid dyes, so they dye animal fibers, they'll dye your hair, they'll dye any cotton, or not cotton, sorry, they'll dye any type of wool clothing you've got on, they dye your skin, they last on your skin until your skin cells wear off. So if you're pretty messy with your artwork, you're going to want to wear gloves and a bib. I'm fairly safe. I don't usually get dye on my hands anymore, but you can see I've even already gotten it on my little washcloth, and if I touch those areas, it'll come off on my hands. So do use apron or whatever you think is necessary. So I'm going to start off just like I did when I was drawing with her body, with the scales here, and I've kind of been switching from like a really bright set of palettes to a more neutral one. I'm finding that people right now are really liking my more neutral pieces. So I'm going to start off with turquoise, but as I go through this whole process of dyeing this piece, as I put layers on, it's going to get darker and darker and more green, and add more green and more olive green to it. But what you're going to see initially is going to be pretty bright. So here's turquoise, and this again is one of the primary colors. And doing a bit of chiaroscuro shading things, you want dark on the sides and then light on the part that's sticking out in the center so that it looks like it's going around. It has depth. And again, you can see how bright this initially is. As I do layers, kind of like a batik artist does layers, my actual roots in hand painted silk actually come from batik. It will change. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to come down and do turquoise green, turquoise blue on her tail. And her tail is on this side, and then it's over here. It goes behind the fish, behind this piece of kelp. It's behind this piece of kelp, which I just got some blue on. So to kind of do this. And just like the chiaroscuro, I'll kind of do the same chiaroscuro thing down here. And I know that this looks really bright with the turquoise, but trust me, I will be making it more neutral. So here I am on a smaller palette mixing up the colors for her skin tone, for her belly, her shoulders, and her face. And the skin tone, I make it depending on what other colors there are in the piece. So in this case, there's some brown, there's some yellow, there's a bit of blue. There's usually a little bit of red in it for me, for like a reddish undertone when I'm doing the type of skin color I have planned for her. I tend to always make these too light because, again, when you're working with dye, you can never make it lighter again in the end. And I usually end up having to go over it a couple of times. So I'm always challenging myself to get it a little bit darker to begin with, but it can be a little nerve-wracking for me because I've invested a lot of work in the piece and I don't want to mess it up with the skin tone. But just like I talked about chiaroscuro and the way I did her body, trying to make things look 3D, I do shading on the edges and on the edges of her swimsuit to make it look like there's a shadow from her swimsuit. I do shading on that area behind her neck to make it look like her neck and her clavicle are forward more. And I'll do lighter colors on her nose and on her chin to make it look like her face is jutting out above the rest of her body. Then for her hair, I'm doing blondish brown colors. And again, I'll put more of the darker, the brownish colors behind her ear, by her neck, and again down by her waist and her underarm to make it look like her body is in front of her hair, which is falling down behind her back. And these are all just different ways of providing shading in order to make a flat drawing look three-dimensional. In regards to her hair, I use the two different colors of yellow that I have. I use brown, I use black, I use a lot of different colors. And as I progress through the piece and make her body darker, I may actually add additional colors to different parts of her hair. And there I am adding some more shading behind her to make it look like her body's in front of her hair. And these are just little tricks as an artist you can use in order to make things appear three-dimensional. And so there you have it. I think it came out kind of nice. So now I'm working on the background colors of the piece, and I'm starting with the kelp. And the kelp is all different colors of green in it. If you've ever seen kelp in real life, it has literally every shade of green and black and sometimes some blue-green in it, because some of the kelp is kind of a turquoisey color, a dark turquoisey color itself. And I throw all these colors in. I'm trying to make the stalk or the trunk of the kelp three-dimensional, and I'm trying to make it look like the leaves are all bending around and moving in all different directions with the flow of the water. So there's a lot going on. And I use a lot of water to blend the different shades of green together. And here I am doing some coloring behind the piece of coral in front. So that gives the piece a little bit of dimension where the kelp is actually behind the coral. And there I am adding some of the dark olive green, which is almost a blackish brown color, but I really like that olive green. Since I've gotten it, it has really improved my leaves and my some of my nature drawings. Because of the depth of green it gives out, and you can see here as the piece progresses how it makes it look like the stalk is actually turning and some of the leaves are actually pulling away from the stalk and floating in the water. Really like the way this piece is coming out. And so you guys know how I get it onto my computer screen is I actually just took a picture, in this case with my iPad, because I'm using my phone to take this video, and then I'll put it into Procreate and change it around and then drop and add colors into it as needed. So I took that photograph and stuck it into Procreate and added background colors, and this is what it looked like on the computer. So this is the image I'm going to work to duplicate in real life in my studio. So I've taken the image that I took off of the iPad and I ran it through Procreate, and I decided on a background color that I wanted, and I also decided how I wanted to darken up and make more neutral her fin and her body, because that turquoise blue was really bright. And just right now I've had a lot of people really liking my more neutral colors, so I'm going to do it more neutral. And this overdying, of course, anything I add to the blue, anything I put on top of it is going to have a bit of a blue tint. So I have to keep that in mind as I'm adding dye here, because I can never really get the exact color that I'm applying with my paintbrush right now, because there's already blue underneath or on the silk originally. So it takes a little expertise and a little bit of working out, but as you can see, I really think she looks great in green. And I'm going to get to the background here in a couple of seconds, and it's primarily black, and it just came out gorgeous. So here I am adding black to the background, and I am just adding straight black. I'm not adding any other colors to it. At the bottom here. At the top, I've got some leftover blue-black from another piece that I've decided to use up. But while I'm down here at the bottom, I'm just adding black. And because I want it to be a really dark black without any other tones, I am not adding any water, and I'm not letting my paintbrush get near any water. I started with a dry paintbrush in order to keep the whole entire thing black and not have any shades of gray or have any paintbrush lines in it. So there you have it. There is the black, and it just makes it look like, it makes a great contrast, and it makes the greens bright even though they're more a neutral color. And I just think it makes the piece beautiful. So here I'm adding black near the very top around her hair and around those fish. And when I get to the very tip up there, which is kind of hard to see, I'm actually switching to another color. It's in that cup over there that you see on the left of the table. It's kind of a blue blackish color, just to give it a little bit of variation on top. Sometimes when you use too much black, it can start to look flat and look a little bit dull. And so I prefer to have other colors in the black, but I really thought in this particular piece, because the front was so lively, that having the flat black in the background would enhance the foreground, the image of her and the coral and the kelp, and not take away from it. And there I just switched over to the cup, and I'm doing the blue black on the very end, which you can barely see. In the next video, I will try and have the camera at a different angle. But this kind of works for what you got going here. You can see. So this is how the final piece came out. This is a photograph of it, and I love the way the coral on the bottom, the colors are mimicked in her hair, the orange in her hair, and I love the black background, and I love the green in her scales and on her fin, and I love the way the fish came out and her hair floating around the fish. Just lovely. So thanks again for watching my video. This is Karla with Karla Kay Art. Subscribe if you want to get notifications of when I put out new videos. And if you're interested in any of my pieces, feel free to contact me. And if you have questions about this video, leave comments below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.